fortunate she was. She would have been here and meeting new people and learning a lot, doing a lot. She, she's helping us educate the public more, but also one of the things that, a couple of things that we're doing with this grant is we plan on buying the two machines that I have at our public farm and our recycling centers currently 500 pounds a day. We're gonna be purchasing two 2,000 pound machines. And we're moving the 500 pound machine to a public park, our central park, if you will, Mill River Park. And that will be used as part of their educational efforts at the park. And as well as we plan on, hopefully, the local restaurants will be able to drop off their food works at that park. The two 2,000 pound machines will go to two public works facilities that we have. So hopefully there'll be minimal additional cost to operate those machines. And what we're also doing through the grant is purchasing 52 smart big belly containers that we're gonna put out throughout the city. And those big belly containers will allow residents to join the program, obviously, and then drop off food waste right there in their neighborhood. And then the grant pays for the next year and a half for the collection of that food waste. And then we plan on utilizing these machines that we have to process the food waste. And the machines dehydrate it from about 90%. And then the product at the end is not straight compost, but it's a soil additive that can be used by the people who partake in the program. And that's what our current 500 pound machine looks like. We look at it and think that, you know, we're not hauling it away, so we're not adding trucking. We're doing it right in-house. The two machines that are currently have been paid for by grants. The two additional machines I have will be paid for by grants. We're hopefully gonna see some great success. Right now, our problem is that utilizing a federal grant to purchase is a lot of hoops to jump through, so vendors have to be registered with the federal government, and that has created a lot longer times to do some of the stuff that I wish we were doing already, that we should have been, we were ready to do. But hopefully by January, I'll have at least 13 big belly containers in town. And then we'll be able to implement the program that we're anticipating. And then our goal is, this past year, we did 130,000 pounds. My goal is to get us to at least 500,000 pounds. And progress from there. If we're successful, then we can progress even further. So that's kind of what we're hoping for. You know, I look at it from a manager of a department and say, any pounds, any tons that I get in this saves me budget money from hauling away garbage. You know, the city now is paying approximately $100 a ton to get rid of garbage. We're paying over that for recycling. So anything that I can remove from the waste stream is saving the city funds. And so this is the advertising that we plan on putting on on the big bellies that are gonna go out in the city, in both English and Spanish. And then on the right, you see the final product of what comes out, and it's a pretty clean product that residents use, and most of the time that tent is empty. Because residents just love and take what we give. So I think we're doing questions later.
Panel file Q&A at the time, so we'll do next to you, don't press. Can you just recording?
Yes. Thank you for having me. I'm looking and seeing like some familiar faces I didn't see before. Nice to see old friends. All right, so I'm going to give a little bit of a higher view of what we're doing as a region in the HRA and who we are. So as an organization, we are a region of 14 municipalities in Western Connecticut. We go as north as Kent and as south as Wilton and Weston. And we were formed in 1986 when the state of Connecticut determined that they would no longer permit landfills. And we would be completely 100% reliant on waste to energy plants. And the HRA came together and we bonded for a 29-year agreement with Wheeler Greater Bridgeport, where we have been sending our trash since we were formed. And the HRA's responsibility runs from everything from registering and permitting waste haulers and facilitating HHW events like Dan mentioned. We have 6 a year. Our events are 5 hours long. We process as many as 1,200 cars in our 5 hours. They are very popular, and we are a region of 14 municipalities, 260,000 people, more than almost 90,000 households. And yet, although we have 6 events, and they run these 5 hours with nearly over 1,000 cars, we're only still collecting from 0.004% of the population. So you have to wonder what happens to all this material. Although we still are providing a service beyond many of the municipalities across the state, because many municipalities only provide 1 event a year. So you have 1 day in an entire year, 364 days to get rid of your hazardous material. And there are municipalities in the state that actually do not provide any access for hazardous waste. Beyond that, we do work for our municipalities to create innovative waste reduction programs. We have an extensive public education and outreach program that we provide to our towns. And I think one of our biggest tasks are just simple guidance, municipal solid waste guidance to our member towns. Our staff is small but mighty. We have 2 full-time staff, myself and my full-time regional recycling coordinator, and I have a part-time 20-hour-a-week public education coordinator. So, tackling our waste crisis, I just want to sort of give an image here that the issue we face is capacity. This is an issue that we have. You know, we produce 3.5 million tons of waste a year. We only have capacity for 2.7 million tons a year. The capacity issue is municipal solid waste via waste to energy plants. We had 6 waste to energy plants, now we only have 4. And the capacity for organics is lacking, although building. And we need easy, convenient drop-off for other material that should be reused, repurposed, recycled. And we only have so many options. We can burn it, we can bury it, we can reduce it. And, reduce either by organics, pay-as-you-throw, source separation programs through EPR. How do we get there is the big question that we all face. And I do think it's important to know we still need capacity. Even if we do reduce our waste, we still need a place to take the material that doesn't have end-of-life management anymore. Everything comes to an end of life at some point, and we have to do something with it. So we still need to maintain some capacity within the state to manage all material. So this is just sort of we all know what many of the solutions are. I mean, I think we're all like-minded here and recognize recycling right and education is important. It will help reduce costs. It does increase the value of the material when we do recycle right. Source separation programs are important and key. It's a question of implementation. It's a question of how do we engage the public? How do we motivate our residents? What gives them convenience? What makes people change? Those are the questions that I ask myself, I ask my staff, I ask my chief elected officials. How do we get there? We know what the solutions are. So I think one of the ways that we get there is working together as a region, working together as communities. You don't have to necessarily be a part of a resource recovery authority to work together either. So we've been working to address this sort of looming crisis for many years, since 2013. We did implement the first municipal sort of its kind organics program in 2014. It was planned out the year before. And since then, we have also facilitated new pay-as-you-throw programs that are complemented with organics programs. We've created robust glass separation programs. In our region, we have 12 municipal drop-off locations, and we are expanding through a grant in 2025 for more glass separation programs. In regards to our organics, we now have 9 transfer station drop-off programs in our 14 municipalities. We have 20 satellite containers. We've purchased the Metro Store container. It's more of an enclosure. It encloses the toter that collects the organics. We have now 2 operating ASP aerated static piles that make compost at municipal sites. We are in the process of building a in-vessel system in the town of Kent, and we're waiting on 2 grants to allow us to build 2 additional facilities in the region, and hopefully that will come to fruition. So we are working together as a region to address those solutions. This is our regional organics network. So starting with the brown dots, or the brown, actually I guess they're stars. Those are our drop-off programs. Those are the 9 drop-off programs. Again, the first started in 2014 in Bridgewater, then we moved in 2015 and added Newtown, Reading, and Ridgefield. Slowly we added Wilton and Kent and Bethel and Weston, and we've worked our way around the region to continue the network. And then we put in satellite containers. Those are all the blue dots. They're actually currently right now, many of them are being installed. And then we have in the green large dots are the on-site municipal composting sites that are either built or in the process of being built. We also, as a region, provide composting 101 classes to our residents for those who do wish to do backyard composting, which is the most economical and sustainable way of dealing with our organics. So on this slide, I just want to address that on the left is an image of our first permitted municipal ASB system in Ridgefield that was paid for by a USDA grant. On the right is one of the Metro Stores enclosures for organics collection. Those are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You access it through an app on your phone. The resident has to agree to the rules, and with another grant, we'll be able to provide more a reduction of contamination, because we'll be able to see in real time what's going into the container and who's dropping it off, so we can have direct communication to that resident. If they put in some vitamins or something that shouldn't belong, or the cake inside the box, it's unbelievable. They are doing what they think is the right thing to do. We think because they're doing it, they want to abide by the rules, but so many miss the mark. And so we're able to engage them directly and say, oops, you made a mistake. Please don't add that to the food waste. You've contaminated our container. So I think here I also want to point out that municipalities, those of us who represent municipalities, we really need to build the infrastructure for local capacity. Going back to the capacity issue, it starts here. It starts with our residents. So we need to build the local capacity. We need to encourage and promote and empower our leaders to make waste management just as important as plowing and paving our roads, as important as school infrastructure. We can't rely on grants forever. They're wonderful. I've been privileged to have many grants to provide the infrastructure and the programs that we have throughout the HRA region, but we can't always rely on them forever, and we'll always be in the now with a grant instead of looking forward into the future and thinking about the long term. So here in our ASP system, we're accepting and processing food scraps locally. We're giving away compost locally to our residents. We actually distributed over 200 cubic yards of compost in the last 18 months out of our Ridgefield facility. That's encouraging we're showing and proving in our region that we as municipalities can be self-sustainable when it comes to managing food scraps locally. We don't have to transport them 50 miles to a commercial processor. We can do it ourselves, and we can do it economically. Public education and engagement is a key component. The region has made public education a main priority since we've been in existence. We provide hands-on presentations to grades K through 12 for over 18 years, and we've also completed our 18th annual billboard contest just this past April. We give out about 15,000 templates, so we're touching the students of our region. About 3,000 actually enter the contest, but along the way, every step, those children, those students are impacted by the message of recycling, waste reduction, even if they don't actually enter the contest. But once they do enter the contest, they have to research and understand what it is that we're trying to educate the public on. They are creating a message. They're creating an ad for the greater public that goes on a bus. We pay for 20 buses throughout the entire region, Heart buses. We basically rent all of them. And their artwork goes on the back of the bus. And even though we only pay for a month, we get donated another month. We'll see these ads all the way until September and October because not every business will pay to replace that ad. So it's money well spent, and we're reaching the public through the young voices. We provide presentations through civic groups. We have an extensive website. We do daily and weekly social media. We table transfer stations to engage with the public. And at the end of the day, it's important for all of us to recognize and accept that it's the people of our communities who will ultimately help us solve the problem in the state. So we have to engage the people, not just build the infrastructure. I think this is my last slide. What is the road ahead? We need systematic transformation. We need to work together as regions or interlocal groups of towns. We need to create leverage. We need a plan. We need to collaborate. We need to invest. We need to move legislation to support change. And we need to build and promote strong public education programs and engage the people of Connecticut to actually care about the future of our environment and how waste impacts all of us. It's something every single person in the world, no matter how old you are, makes waste every single day. And yet it's not the topic that no one really wants to talk about. It's not sexy and hot, and it's not the craze. But how do we make it? How do we make it important? How do we get the next future of the generation to see the importance of how waste impacts our environment, but also our pocketbooks? Look at our tip fees. We are lucky in the HRA region. We're just hovering over $100 a ton. But just north of us, we have communities that are paying $140 to $150 a ton for MSW, and it's only going to go higher. And although money shouldn't be the complete driving force behind the change, it is an important factor of where are we going to bring this waste? Are we going to be reliant on Pennsylvania, upstate New York, Ohio to take our garbage that has up to 25–30% organic material in it, possible toxins? If you only have 0.004% of the population using HHW event, there's a lot of HHW in our solid waste. So we need to think about that. How does it impact us in our wallets, and how does it impact the future of our environment? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, perfect.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, for having me here today. And I'm going to do the presentation for my team from Fairfield, but we'll all be here to answer questions afterwards. So just like a quick background, I moved to Fairfield in 2021 from Brooklyn, where my daughter was composting in her school from kindergarten. And we also had municipal compost. So when I moved here, I was very surprised that we didn't have any of that. And it motivated me to kind of get rolling with our schools. So that's how it all began for me personally. Fairfield is a big town. We have about over 60,000 residents. We have 11 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and 3 high schools. One of them is a technical high school that's small, and about 9,100 students, give or take, each year. So in the 2021 year, or 2021-2022 school year, we sort of planted the seeds for cafeteria compost in 2 elementary schools as a pilot program. Some parents worked with our school department to get that rolling. And by mid-year in the following school year, 2022-2023, we had 2 schools composting with hauling provided by curbside compost. And then later in that year, a 3rd school launched with their own grant funds, knowing that they would be funded the following year. Around that time, we thought, this is nice, but we really need to do it in volume to make it fiscally responsible for our district. So we thought the more schools we had, the cheaper it would be kind of overall. So with that in mind, we started to figure out a way to kind of like push the envelope, and we applied in collaboration with Sustainable Fairfield. We applied for a Sustainable CT grant, a matching grant, where we raised $25,000, and the Sustainable CT matched that 1.5 times because they were really excited about compost. And when we raised that money, we actually we had initially hoped to add 5 more schools, but we ultimately decided to do all 11 elementary schools because it felt like a ripping off the Band-Aid kind of situation. So we just went for the gold. So after we raised the money, the following year, we started rolling out the programs. We did custodian training over the summer, but it was sort of an abstract type of thing because it was really hard to imagine, I think, for a lot of people, what it would practically look like in school. So over time, I visited every building with someone from the administration, and we met with the custodian, the principal, and parents from the green team at each school to kind of put together a program and figure out how it would work. And over the course of that year, we launched all 11 elementary schools. By March, we had all 11 schools composting. And then we kind of thought about how we wanted to expand that program in a practical way. So what we decided to do was roll it up to 6th grade. And FPS agreed to cover that additional cost for this past year. So in 2024-2025, we had the middle schoolers, just the 6th grade, because they had done it the year before. So we were like, they get it, they know what to do. It'll be kind of easier than trying to teach some teenagers who had never done it before how to sort their waste in the cafeteria. So the implementation, as I said, first, we started with custodian training, which was done in a school that was already composting, so they could see what the setup looked like. We did, as I mentioned, on-site preparatory visits at all schools. So we met with all of the stakeholders who had a role to play, and importantly, we really tried to come to the custodians with an attitude of, you tell us how it works now, you tell us what you think makes sense for you. This is what we're going to do, but we want it to happen in a way that feels comfortable and right for you. And then the education element was there as well. So we had assemblies at all of the schools. We kind of had a little presentation that we shared, and each school did it slightly differently because each school is different. And we taught the kids about why they had to compost and how to do it. And then the biggest ask and the most difficult part by far is we had 2 to 4 months of parent volunteers in the cafeteria helping the kids separate their waste until they felt confident about what went in which bin. And we'll talk more about the challenges of that. And then ongoing, you need parents, parent volunteers at the beginning of each school year for the summer slide, but also because the kindergartners have never done it before, so they're learning for the first time. Some of the challenges, there at the time were a limited number of haulers available, which meant that the pricing was not as competitive as we had hoped. Some schools prefer not to have parent helpers. There were a couple of principals who were like, we don't want parents in the cafeteria, it's distracting, whatever. So they agreed to have in-house people take care of it, which was challenging for us because then we have no control over what's going on and we don't really know, but for the best. And some schools find it hard to get parent helpers. You know, not everyone has the flexibility to step away from their job in the middle of the day. We certainly, like in my school, my kids' school, for example, we tried to make the slots really small so that parents could step away, even if they were working from home or something, they could on their lunch break come in. The lunches are only 20 minutes and they really only need you there for the last 10 minutes. So we, you know, tried to accommodate that, but it still can be really hard to get parents to come into school. And some of our custodians were resistant to change. I mean, we're all a little resistant to change, but that was definitely a challenge. So a few key takeaways from our work was, again, to work with custodians and encourage their input on best practices. They're the experts. Many of them have worked in these buildings for dozens of years, literally. So no one wants to come in and say, let me tell you what everything you're doing wrong, I'm gonna fix it for you. So it's a team project. Not every school will be the same. All of our schools are really different, which was why it was important to us that there were a team of people at each school kind of like working with the needs of that school. Parent support is critical. We really needed to have bodies in the building, and we tried to stress that it was an opportunity to be in school and see how things are and see the way kids talk to each other in the cafeteria. It's really cool and fun. And it's not just for people who are like really passionate about the environment. Anyone can do it. Buy-in from staff is super important. And we, like, as we were chatting earlier, Emma mentioned that like the schools where there's buy-in from the principals and the staff are just more successful than the schools that are. It's really, really important, and you can do it without it, but it helps a lot. And finally, like so many things in life, it will not be perfect, but it will be good. And there's always room for improvement. So to date, we estimate that we have diverted 1.3 million pounds of food waste since 2022, which is the equivalent of avoiding 961,000 miles of driving. This is a very loose estimate, but we can tell you with total confidence that we all know anecdotally that every cafeteria was making 5 to 12 64-gallon bags of trash every day, and every cafeteria now makes 1 bag of trash every day. Everything else is going in compost or recycling or food rescue, which is like a whole other part of our program that we don't have time to talk about today. And we just wanted to end with this slide that shows different setups at different schools. So each one is a little bit different. We have the share bins on the right side. Some schools have these cool tables made that you can see with like the special holes for each different thing. That like sort of one of the top center is my son's school, and you see we have the share table right there, so the kids know when they come out. Many of them, I'm sure, as you would guess, come out of the cafeteria line and immediately put the fruits and vegetables on the share table. And then there's a liquids bin, and then recycling, trash, and then finally compost is the biggest one because we compost our trays, and that is a huge part of what was making up our waste. So that is the gist of it, and we'll be happy to answer any questions at the end. Yeah, there's one more presentation, Councilman's conference.
Whenever you're ready.
Ready?
Start going.
Good morning. My name is Scott Burns. I am a city councilman in Bridgeport, but I am also the board chair and co-founder of Park City Compost. And I just want to also extend my thanks to WestCog and MetroCog and Sacred Heart for making all this happen. It's great to pull everyone together. And here's some different perspectives of what we're doing within what is, really a fairly small corner of the world, but I think we can really set the stage for what we're trying to do. Park City Compost has been in existence since 2020. We really started out as Black Rock Community Compost, and we made ourselves formally a 501c3 a few years ago. And so we are now a nonprofit. I just move ahead or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right.
You got the.
Sure. So we really look at ourselves having two dual missions. One is to carry out scaled aerobic food scrap composting operations, particularly in Bridgeport. But also, and as we've heard from our other presenters, to drive the education and awareness about aerobic composting as beneficial for the city. Certainly going back to the beginning too, in terms of how we can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and other climate impacts by taking these pretty simple steps. Just real quickly, that's myself on the left, and Andrew Terrell with the white hat was my co-founder. He's moved on to different business family missions. Tim O'Connor is our executive director, and then Tommy Eisen has helped us with social media and things like that. He's also, his compost kind of led to a very different full-time job, but good for him. Okay, so our objectives are pretty varied, but you will see that profit is not one of those. So we're a nonprofit, and so we really had carrying out this, kind of heartfelt mission about what we're trying to do. So we want to start the compost operations, say a little bit more about that in a minute, carry out education, not just for people who are participating, but we need to educate, as we heard, also political leaders, community leaders, make sure they know what's going on. Reduce the cost. Again, commercial tipping fees are way north of $100 a ton. Municipalities are dealing with around 90 a ton. Anything we can do to reduce that helps everybody. Address environmental justice concerns. Bridgeport, the entire city, is an EJ community. So everything we can do to help reduce some of the historical harms there is important to us. We're looking to employ local people who may have trouble finding jobs. I'm not going to go into all of that, but we certainly want to look to hire local people. And one of our only part-time employee is a neighbor of ours. We want to invest in restoring healthy soils. Again, Bridgeport itself is an old city that has really dealt with a lot of harms over time from industrial activity, brownfields, gray fields, you name it. Our parks, our residents, everybody needs to, give some life back to the soils, and this is an easy way to do it. And lastly, we want to establish a model that we hope can be carried out elsewhere. Aerobic composting. So just want to share a little bit about that. I know, Jen and her group are doing it. Dan's operation's a little different, but it's a really simple thing, and this is what we do. Part of our operations to explain what it is, and it's very natural, simple biological activity. I'm not the scientist, Tim more of a scientist. I just say we need browns and greens. So we need the greens, which are essentially, the food scraps. The browns are the wood chips, the leaves, kind of the wood type material to make it all happen. One of the issues that we try to reassure all our would-be participants and sites that may host us, we get, concerns about, oh, there's gonna be rodents, pests, all that. When you do the piles right, they get up to 150, 160 degrees. And there's no mammal that really likes to live in that environment. So, it's basically not a problem. So if you're doing it right, and, we check our temps a couple times a week, and we make sure that the piles stay hot in the 140, 160 range, and that's when things are really cooking, and it's all biological. So once you get the process going, it's great. And then, again, once it goes back to the soil, it really boosts things. We're looking at a couple locations, and I do want to recognize Molly. Where'd you go? There you go. Molly Ryan from the town of Stratford has been instrumental in helping us get a grant from the state to expand operations in the town of Stratford, our neighbor. They've been very welcoming to us. And we're also looking now at, I don't know if it's a site in Bridgeport. We've had some struggles finding a suitable location. But this is kind of an arrangement that, on a large scale, we would like to do. It's open air, clear, it's easy to work with. But that's what we're looking to aim for. The other piece that maybe we haven't heard as much about today, the entire process of what do you do with leftover food. And I'll talk about the state law in a moment too. But one of the first priorities is to take any food that can be given back to humans, get that back to them first. So we do have some organizations, both locally and with a further reach. And that's something that as we ramp up our activities, we want to make sure that we're addressing that first. So just because a grocery store doesn't want to sell something because it's right at its due date, we want to get back to folks who can use it first and foremost. Why do we compost? For the simple reasons that we were talking about is saving money for municipalities and therefore the residents, create a better, healthy environment. So in my district in Black Rock and West Side, and I got a few friends here from the district today, which is great. We have the Wheelabrator plant that Jen mentioned earlier. Kicks off a lot of heat, steam, things like that. Trucks are coming there daily with their waste to incinerate. They sit there and they idle, and that adds to greenhouse emissions, etc. So the more we can reduce all the waste that's going to Wheelabrator is going to have an immediate impact in that neighborhood. So, I'm personally pretty driven to make sure that happens. So right now we're, again, we're talking about kind of scratching the surface. Stanford, I'm very impressed with the numbers. It's fantastic. That's great to hear how things are going, but we need to really make this happen statewide, particularly within Bridgeport. And that's really our goal. So this is a little bit on the state law. As it stands now, source separated organic material is the phrase that the legislators came up with, but essentially that means food scraps. And if you are a grocery store, a restaurant, a food producer, food manufacturer, if you're a hospital, if you are a university, if you produce over 26 tons of food scrap waste annually, you are supposed to be composting it. Obviously, it's kind of hard. We don't have all those facilities up and running, which we don't. But as we get there, both the requirement is going to become more impactful, and being able to get those institutions, groups, organizations, businesses on board will push things along. And as of now, July 26th, I'm sorry, I thought it was 25, but I'll double check that. It is next year, okay, yeah, sorry. Thank you. But all schools, and I did double check this, I thought it was public, but it's non-public as well are obligated if they produce all the food scraps, need to come to a facility as well, if there's one within a 20-mile radius. So, again, that's an education piece where, I bet a lot of boards of education, which have important things to handle with, this isn't top of mind, but we need to let them know. Again, just sharing a little information from, Deep, if this goes out later, these are all hyperlinks to, Deep's, information about the different opportunities, guidelines, suggestions, etc. It's a good, usable, site from that point of view. And then there is also a good number of links regarding, the legal and regulatory and permitting process, which we are, embarking on as well. So, there's a lot to it, and again, sure others can share more. And that's really, that's our operation. It's small, but we're pretty mighty. That's our one tractor, which we were able to obtain with a grant through the local Bridgeport Environmental Trust Fund, which was through PSEG. Same with the trommel, and we basically have a 3-pile system there that works. For those who don't know, Captain's Cove is a tourist attraction, shall we say. In the winter they store boats, but in the summer they've got a dock area and restaurants and music, and it's a fun place. But the operators there are again local neighbors, and they said, go for it, take our space. So we use about 8-10 parking spots, and all free of charge, and it's been very compatible, and it's worked out. So I did bring a couple props. These are the buckets that we go around picking up, from our neighbors once a week. We use the bio bags, which again, I think a lot of you know about. These are some people call them plastic, they're more or less corn. And right now we're servicing about 150 homes, I would say, in the neighborhood, for the most part. And then we have a few other folks who work with the East Side Senior Center, the East End NRZ, and we also have a coffee roaster in the cities now working with us as well. And we have a local vegetarian restaurant, which is fabulous. So again, we're moving ahead. Again, Stratford is moving along. We've got a very nice grant there. Bridgeport, we have a federal grant. God knows what's happening in Washington. But once we get our site secured, it looks like we'll be able to take advantage of a pretty nice grant there too. So thank you.
We're just gonna move these chairs to the center and invite all of our speakers up for a panel Q&A. So in just a minute, if you have a question, we'll ask you to raise your hand, and Nick will bring the mic around to our question, and I'll bring the mic around to you. Who, at the top of your question, if you have a specific person you'd like to answer, let us know. Otherwise, we'll let everyone have the opportunity.
Can I pull over these two? Yeah. Just do it ourselves.
Hey, does anyone have any questions? Start.
This is welcome to everybody that spoke, very interesting. There are some of you. My name is Diane Moricella, Recycle CT Foundation and Norwalk Zero Waste Coalition, and also CJAC. I'm the waste co-chair of the subcommittee for CJAC, which has to do with environmental justice issues. What I wanted just to ask, starting with Jennifer, and I was very much in favor of a regional approach to our waste crisis. I see that there aren't certain cities and towns here today for various reasons, but in southwestern Connecticut, where we have the wonderful Dan Cullilore, I'm a big fan, except for the machine. Well, we've talked about that, but the thing is, what is the advantage for people here of a regional approach because it's expensive to set up individual town programs and contracts. So could any of you help us understand better how the regional approach like HRRA has worked on might help us scale up, save money faster, and educate the taxpayers about this regional approach to share the resources. So thank you very much for being here.
Good to see you in person, Diane. I would say I can speak for the HRA. So we have a very diverse region from very small communities, the little town of Bridgewater, where there's 900 households, to the city of Danbury, where 80,000 households. So what we do is we create one voice for the different sizes of communities. So the small rural communities are not left out. And so I consider myself, I'm sort of the voice for the region. I am able to collaborate with our 14 chief elected officials, our mayors and first selectmen. We collaborate together to create the vision or the plan, and then we're able to implement it on their behalf. What we have done is create leverage where if you have a small community and perhaps their tonnage, and unfortunately, this is the world of waste. This is just simply the fact of how it works. It's based on the leverage of how much waste you produce, which is we want the opposite, but this is how we do it, with how we leverage a contract. So a small community like Bridgewater may produce, let's say 25 to 40 tons of solid waste a year. It's not a lot of waste. But as a region, at 14 towns, we produce 150,000 tons of municipal solid waste. So these small communities together, collaboratively, we produce a lot of waste. We're able to then leverage contracts because the vendor who wants that waste, who is profiting off of our waste, there's more opportunity for them to service an entire region or a group of municipalities than just one community at a time. So in regards to waste, that's how it works for waste. In regards to like organics, creating a network, we have small communities that really cannot afford and do not have the staff. They don't have the resources to manage a compost site. So let's go back to Bridgewater or New Fairfield, where we are collecting organics from our residents, but perhaps we're having to pay to transport that material several towns away and pay for the transportation and disposal costs. That's a burden to the municipality. Even though it should be considered just part of the general budget, just as important as other aspects of providing services to the community, it is not, but that's another, I just had to make that comment. How do we help those small communities be sustainable? We work together with those neighboring towns. So with the town of Kent, we're building an on-site facility, which we will support the other small local rural communities around it. We as an HRA, we're going to go into the business of collecting material. We've our haulers and discussed, that was about an 18-month collaboration with our private haulers, and it became a voluntary system. So we help them promote on our website if they are a pay-as-you-throw hauler, and they offered either number of bags or different size carts. And it's really just a volunteer system. We can't force them or make them offer pay-as-you-throw. It's only to their best interest, because how do we pay for trash? We pay for it by the ton. If their customer reduces the amount of waste, they're reducing their cost at the transfer station, and they're still making the money on the service end. So it's really trying to get them the mindset of changing and recognizing these are the haulers that are not integrated. A fully integrated hauler that does not have, they're not a hauling business, they own a transfer station, they own a material recovery facility. We're not talking about them. We're talking about the small mom and pop haulers who it is only to their best interest to reduce their solid waste because it can reduce their cost and increase their profits.
Hi there, I'm Cole with Westcott, and I have a seat question for the green team. And I'm curious about, since it's been 3 years of running the program, and I just imagine myself as a high school student or a young kid, and I can be really excited as a young kid, but how are the students taking being older and Are you seeing that they hold on to those pet training?
Big hurdle for them. The schools I was in, the kids really got it down pat. It's gonna be very interesting this year, expanding to the older kids who maybe haven't been doing it for so long. I think there's always gonna be people who don't care and they do it wrong, you know, whether they're in kindergarten or they're a senior in high school. There's gonna be those students or those residents who say, I'm just gonna put my trash in the compost because I don't really care. That's just something I think that, as Megan said, it's not gonna be perfect. I think the majority of kids, I think the important thing is starting them young, because then there's kids that have started young and they go to a birthday party now and they say like, why is there compost here? Like, it's so ingrained in them. And so that hopefully by the time those kids are in high school, I think it is gonna be harder with the older kids, but hopefully there's enough like, you know, cooperation, I guess. We get some kids who are like really enthusiastic about it, but I don't know, did you guys think that?
I have one more thing to add. I just want to say, first of all, like, the people who came to visit at Dwight, a handful of you are here, where we kind of were there during the lunch period and watched the kids do it. Like 90% of them, it's like as natural as just dumping the whole thing in the trash. They just know what they're doing and they do it. So I don't think they think about it a lot. But to me, that also is like, I don't want to say it's a failure of the program, but something that's been a disappointment for me is that it hasn't translated into our community at large, really taking the next step and hiring a compost hauler for their home, or bringing their compost or bringing their food waste to the transfer station. We haven't seen that kind of growth the way that we would like to see. So I think like the thing that has been really, I've been hearing the most in this event today is that education is like so crucial, and I think we just need to ramp up what we're doing education wise, so that the kids are not just blindly doing it, but actually really thinking about what they're doing and why, and taking that home with them.
Very good, thank you.
I was just wondering if you would be willing to share the annual budget for HRRA's solid waste program and also Stanford's, because I know in Norwalk we get $100,000 for the minis. And it's supposed to be used for solid waste related activities. So I'm just wondering what it would take to set up more effective programs in other places. And also I'm interested in the cost of the Metro store containers, because that sounds like a really cool app. And that's it for now.
The Metro stores are $2,700 a piece, and that included the 36-month access to the app. Our budget this 25-26 fiscal year is $985,000. There is about $350,000 of that is a pass-through, which we call pass-through. We facilitate the hazardous waste events, and then I build my towns back out. Our revenue does not come from taxes. Our revenue comes from a small percentage of administrative fee from every ton of municipal solid waste. So it is actually in our best interest for people to throw away garbage. We make money, but I am the first one to give away that money and try to reduce our waste, as well as we get a certain amount of money for every ton of mixed recycling. And by implementing the glass program, which is the heaviest material on the recycling stream, we reduced our revenue stream for that, but it was all for a good reason. But that is where most of our funding comes from. We do receive some grants for our education programs for the billboard contest. And then registering and permitting haulers brings in about $150,000 a year. We do have over 70 registered and permitted haulers in our 14 municipalities. So that's where our revenue comes from. That makes up our budget. And we do not receive any of the funding for the NIPS, the municipalities do. But I will publicly say I'm not a fan of the NIP program. There should have been a deposit or a ban on NIPS. I'm sorry. The funding, thank you, you can clap. And you can clap online too. That money, our municipalities are becoming addicted to that money. It's easy money. And NIPS are immediate consumption of alcohol and thrown out in our parking lots or along our streets. It's also unfair to the municipalities like the little town of Bridgewater. And I'm sorry, I keep bringing it up. I actually live in Bridgewater, but we do not have a liquor store, but we are sandwiched between all the towns that do have liquor stores. Our streets are lined with NIPS, and we do not get any of the funding. So it's not an equitable program in regards to that. Not every town has liquor stores. And I don't think we should be self-reliant on the net money. Let's find other ways, including why can't it just be a part of our annual budget? Just as it is for paving roads, plowing roads, building infrastructure for schools, etc. Or all of the costs that we have for labor to run our towns. So, sorry, that one, take a step off my box.
Dan, they wanted to know as well.
Stanford's operation budget is about $13 million. Because we do collection of 110,000 households for garbage, so we do the collection for most of Stanford. We don't do any commercial collection. We have a transfer station and a recycling center as well. We collect about $4 million a year in revenue from all the different sources that we have. I agree with what Jen said, 100%. NIF should be deposits. I mean, to me, it's ridiculous that they're not. Because there's no differential. You know, people just complain.
Larry Caparo's handiwork, yes.
So, you know, the whole thing about solid waste, as Jen stated very eloquently, I think, you know, people don't care about it. They don't think about garbage. And ultimately, it's a cost to all of us. And it's something that has to be looked at and done in every municipality. You know, I'm in a very large city. And you know, I have a huge operating budget, make a lot of money in revenue, but revenues in the city of Stanford are different than expenditures, so I don't see the revenue, so I can't use it to promote other things. And I have a very, very tiny budget that I find money for to use for proactive things, for education, things like that.
It's very tiny to you, that's what I'm asking.
Zero. Zero, so I have to find it in other sources when I can make savings here, savings there. I use some of that money to do some different, and you know, Jen was talking about Metro Store. That's my little lovely book that I have. They gave me a nice little book, so I use them. The Metro Store container is $2,700. The Big Belly container that I have to use is $4,100 because EPA.
USA, they wanted it in the United States.
Exactly, it's a sole source. They, in essence, made me buy Big Bellies instead of buying Metro Store. But Metro Store doesn't provide all the services I don't think that Big Belly does. But he may do for the less cost.
We'll have to compare them.
Hi, my name is Amanda Gonzalez. I am a resident of Bridgeport. I live in Bridgeport, but as a resident growing up and not knowing much about compost and learning about it now, I'm hearing a lot of financial, you know, we need finances for education to educate people, but what people are you trying to educate? Where is your target goal to educate people? The first question I had actually was for this group with the idea of putting these bins in the schools. Have you guys thought about hospitals and keep continuing that as they grow and just having it, if it's not something mandatory, at least have it as an option? This is what we have. Remember doing this in school, you know what, we can keep it going. Is that something that your end goal there is to try to expand not only to schools, but also to hospitals or senior livings where they have constant, unique, you know, waste, food waste?
So do you want to start with your Bridgeport and then send it down?
Thank you for the questions, Annette. So yeah, education, as I said, was a really important factor in terms of letting people know what it is. So our approach basically is, you know, we started very much in our neighborhood. We've worked with the NRZs and in Bridgeport, those are organizations called neighborhood revitalization zones. They're basically neighborhood based. So we've gone to the different NRZs to say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we would like to do, and you know, the impact for the city. We're also very active in our business community. Park City Compost is part of the Bridgeport Chamber of Commerce, so Tim is an ambassador. So we've gotten our name out there in different ways, and we're trying to be as present as we can. And I've also, had discussions with the public schools about how can we, get into the schools. Part of our struggle right now, we just don't have enough space, so we had the, kind of this lovely little corner part of Captain's Cove, but we can't go much beyond that. The other piece, I don't wanna get, too far down a rabbit hole, but we had one location picked out in Bridgeport, which we thought was, essentially perfect. And the long and short is, we were victims of a disinformation campaign. We had a local nonprofit, we had a church, a few neighborhood folks who came in and started to spout all this information that just wasn't true or accurate. We had talked to local leaders, we had talked with some community leaders, but for us, a big takeaway, and I think I shared this with the state as well, was we really gotta be clear about what we're doing in terms of education. It's not a smelly process, it's not, dirty, foul, infestation. It's very clean, natural. I mean, Dan, your grass is certainly clean when, it's contained, but, I think that's a really important aspect. So it's gonna take multiple layers, multiple efforts to get the education part out and make sure people understand what we're trying to do. Thanks.
So in Sanford, we're lucky right now, the mayor is very into sustainability, and we're getting more efforts into that and more funding into that. The biggest part that I find is that you have to consistently educate, consistently promote, and consistently push the issue. It's, unfortunately in Stanford, we used to have a public works yard in our North Stanford area that processed about 15,000 tons of leaves a year. Well, that was closed down 10 years ago. And it will never come back. And an example of that is the NIMBY effect, not my backyard. And I believe that that's the biggest effect that we're experiencing. Land value in Stanford is very high, and it's very tough to put these things in. There's some discussion right now within the administration. The city has a lot of little pieces of property that we might be able to do something I think like Scott had or something like that. But that's also been very, very expensive and very costly, I think, to set up and then to staff. So it's a consistent, you have to be consistent and push the effort every corner you can, I think.
First off, address the education piece. So for HRA, we go into all of our schools, all 14 municipalities, including Danbury, which is our most diverse community, K through 12. And engage those students with hands-on presentations and talks about waste reduction and recycling and composting and the importance of composting. We also go to community civic groups when they ask for us to come. In regards to hospitals and schools and implementation of actual programs, there's some fine lines where what we do and what we don't do. Most of our hospitals are privately owned, they're not all public, so they have to make those determinations, but this is where I believe it's really important to have legislation. At some point, we do need to make food waste a mandated recyclable, or have it as a waste ban, and you do. Yes, you can clap for that too. When we have policies and regulation, there tends to be much more followed procedure of implementation of those programs. Not always. I mean, we have the large generation law that's been in effect for several years, and not all large generators honor that. We lack enforcement at the state level to ensure that these large generators, like hospitals, are actually abiding by that law. Many of those hospitals that hit that threshold. Schools will have the law next year, but not all of them meet that threshold. We have two of our, in 14 municipalities, only 2 schools meet the threshold for July of 2020. That might change. Maybe the threshold will change with the law and the policies over time. But it shouldn't, unfortunately, it shouldn't take a law. It should just be a practice of, this is material management. This is one of the materials that needs to be managed, and this is how we manage it. We source separate organics as one material. So it's a difficult issue when it comes to other locations, but like, these wonderful volunteers here are amazing. We should give them a round of applause for giving their heart and soul and community to their communities. We need more volunteers, we need more parent engagement, we need more community engagement in our schools. We need to encourage our superintendents and principals to be a part of the change. They sort of took an oath to educate these students. Should be a part of the education of our students. Material management, waste reduction, and how to manage organics. So, but we're here, we're doing it right now, right? So don't lose encouragement for doing it and be a part of your community. I'm just gonna quickly say, I applied for that EPA grant that I didn't get, and, but, you know, it's okay, I got a couple of other ones. But one of my visions for I would love to do is, have community block parties within some of our places, some of our towns like Danbury. And, I'll be the first one to say, I only speak English. And shame on me, that's the only language that I speak. But I can't communicate to all my residents. We need bilingual educators to come into our communities to help engage for those communities that that don't understand how we do things here, and embrace them to say, let's make your community beautiful. Let's do that. Let's work together. And that was part of the vision, my public education vision for the grant I didn't get. Doesn't mean I won't apply again and ask for that money, but I would love to see more community engagement, small community block communities that we talk about. How do you manage your waste? There's so much wasted food. It breaks my heart. I've been working with Food Rescue to see that there are folks who wait in line to get food from the food pantries and then go home and throw it away after they stood in line because it's not what they want, because they were handed a bag they didn't get to choose. They shouldn't just be handed a bag. These folks should get to have a choice of what they want, so they're not taking it home and wasting it again. We need to work on that. There's so much about material management that we need to work on. And when you break it down into small pieces, it can blow your mind away. But I appreciate that you're here and wanting to be engaged. So thank you.
I'll say just quickly, obviously, we're in the schools, so we go into each classroom and we talk about it in terms of like for the kids. I'm also on Sustainable Fairfield. I know Becky was here. I don't know. We've got some other Fairfield folks up here, but we do Sustainable Fairfield will go to like our farmers market. We have a table every week that talks about composting and all the projects that Sustainable Fairfield does. We do library sessions for the residents. This is all like for the residents. But I think it's a challenge getting the word out. I think, to have people to attend something like this, to come to the library, to come to the farmers market, it's always hard. So we're always looking for new ideas. We put flyers like in the sewer tax bills. We put flyers out, other ways to try to get to different people who may not be engaged, but it's hard. So coming to something like this and hearing what other towns are, I think is like great for us. About expanding to institutions.
I mean, not expanding to institutions so much, but starting at a young age. We are starting in the elementary schools, and the kids are so excited to learn about these things. And it's going to become, by the time they're professionals, it'll just be like everything else they do on a daily basis in their life. So, with each year, it improves.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think that the reason that we're harping on education is because we're trying to, I think most people don't know why it's important to separate their food waste, or why it's important to reduce, the first step for all of this is to reduce the waste we're making in general, and then carefully manage the waste that we do make. And I think that the vast majority of people don't understand why separating your food waste is a big deal, because when your wet food waste gets burned and you breathe that air, it's not good for you. And I don't think everyone even realizes that's how we manage waste in Connecticut. I think most people don't know that. So we're doing a lot of different things, but it's not enough. We're trying to do as much as possible to get people to understand why this matters. And I agree, I think planting the seeds in little kids is how, when they grow up and they're working in a hospital, hey, wait a minute, why aren't we doing this where I live? Where I work, this is, yeah, exactly. So.
I just have one quick. There we go. Yeah, so Jen mentioned multi-language issues. And again, Tommy, who I mentioned before, is a Spanish speaker, and Eucadio Campos, who's our main helper, also speaks Spanish. And Eucadio and I have gone to the East Side Senior Center to do a presentation demo with. Thank God he was there because, I mean, I knew they were mostly Spanish speaking, but it went very well, and I just was like, yep, you got it, you take it over, and of course, did a great job, and, they're part of our loop now.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Baldwin. I'm with Connecticut D. Thank you so much for this. This is a great program. I hope everybody is inspired by all the speakers today. They're doing incredible work. I could ask a zillion questions of everybody, but I will try to limit it. But before I do, I want to let everybody know that CET, the Center for Ecological Technology, is under contract with the department right now, specifically to work with commercial businesses that generate 26 tons or more. You mentioned how difficult it is to do outreach. It's really difficult to get businesses that want to work with us, regardless of whether or not they're required to, and take technical assistance, which is free. So if you have a hospital that you think is triggered by the law, if you have businesses in your town, please let us know. You can contact me individually, though I don't run that program, and I can make sure that that information gets to the contractor so you can have free technical assistance for businesses in your town.
And also let your cogs know we're Metro Cog.
That's right, let your cogs know too. I worked on the school program. I know it was not a department law. The piece of legislation related to schools was not ours, and only 20 schools are actually triggered by the law. But I want to commend you for doing so much regardless of having a law. And I'm wondering, because you have done so well with your school program, is the administration actually starting to see a cost savings or a disposal savings where they're actually beginning to recognize the importance of the work that you've been doing?
That's something that we've been trying to figure out, and we actually did some late night dumpster diving to see, just to like check out what the situation was between the compost bins and the dumpsters, and we definitely noted that there is much less trash. I mean, we know that there is so much less trash, so that's something that Emma and Lisa have been working with the administration on, changing. Do you want to talk more about that? And I will say, I did not say in my presentation, but this is very important, that part of the reason that we did the grant and went kind of like go for the gold with all 11 schools was because we figured once we had them all going, it would be so hard for them to take that away from us, even when we ran out of the money.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah.
And we are in the budget for Fairfield Public Schools going forward, starting this year and going forward. So, our like speaking plan worked, yeah, and then some, So our goal, our initial goal when we rolled into 6th grade last year was to take that class to
Seventh grade.
And as they grow, so that by the time they graduate in 2031, all of the grades would be doing compost, but I don't know.
Go ahead.
Talk about how the custodians love it.
Yeah,
Custodians like what?
They
love it.
That was something I thought was so great.
Yes, some of the custodians do like it, some of them don't love it, but I would say, what?
Yeah, and some, a lot of the custodians that I've worked with too, a lot of them had said, once we started doing it, it's actually easier.
It is easier.
It's less to haul out. It's less work.
Yeah.
So, I think it's again that change thing where it's a lot to process, and when you're doing something for so long in a certain way, with anything, it's like, but then once you start doing it, you realize, hey, it's not that bad, and it's actually better. So many ways.
I was just gonna say to the cost, I feel like I can answer each question with a challenge, but we're volunteers, and so we don't have anything to say about the contracts. And it would be really amazing if we had our director of operations here and he could speak to that. But unfortunately, there's like a wall, that we're in the schools every day and we're working with the custodians, but we don't handle the money. So we don't have a great answer for that. And I wish it was more transparent, but yeah, that's the way things work.
I will challenge all of you, everyone, to go and look at your school contracts. If you have to, you shouldn't have to, but our schools pay incredibly just a stupid amount of money to get rid of trash 9 months out of the year. And it's mostly paper and organics. I have schools that have $100,000 waste contract. What? For school, for a few hundred kids or 1,000 kids? That's insane. So it's hard to see the savings when they're overcharged, first of all, so that needs to be looked at. And, you know, had to come to the realization, so in 2013-14, when I implemented the first municipal organics collection program, I was like, we're gonna save money. I was convinced everyone, we're gonna save money, we're gonna save money. We didn't save any money, but we did reduce our waste. So I'm hoping we can kind of get away from the narrative about like, you're gonna save money, you're gonna save money. It's a separate pickup, it's another service that we have to pay for, we have to be willing to pay for it. It's okay, we have to pay for it, but maybe you're not saving money, but you're also not paying more. So there's a savings, but then it's a cost shift. And we have to be okay with that because we're doing the right thing for the environment, we're doing the right thing for material management, we're less dependent on waste to energy plants, we're less dependent on our neighbors with landfills. So yeah, sorry, that's the point of that.
We've got one here and then we'll go over here.
So 2 questions. One is, I know that HRRA recently added a community and both Fairfield and Norwalk border your towns. Are you receptive to just having more economies of scale by taking on some of the larger urban areas around you rather than us having to build what you built? That's number one. And secondly, with your 62,500 that you raised with the Sustainable CT grant and your own private fundraising, how did you spend that money in the early years?
I'll make it real quick. We are always open to expanding the region. We do have some towns that are asking now to enter as members. But I'm also happy to work with other municipalities. I'm having conversations with communities through WestCog, some of the Northwest Hillcog members, to help them integrate into their own resource recovery authority that makes sense for them. You know, you don't want too big. That's what happened in the mirror. So I think economies of scale are important, regions are important, but you want to have a certain size so that it works and it works well and we all work well together. And I think that was the only question we had.
I think we have a very fast answer. Basically, the $62,000 was almost entirely for hauling costs for the compost. I mean, we used small amounts of it for like education and posters and stuff like that, but basically that paid for not quite 2 years of hauling cost for the 8 elementary schools. Correct?
Yeah, and we bought pizzas for the janitors.
Yeah, we would get the janitors like lunch and stuff like that, to custodians to sweeten the deal.
Yeah.
Hi, Jen, over here, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify, you said that there was a 40% reduction in solid waste with pay as you throw? Is that correct?
Yes, at our transfer station.
At the transfer station. But then you just said there's no savings on the organics?
I'm just talking about the specific, like certain organics programs where we were just implementing organics as a drop off with a facility that already had pay as you throw.
I want everybody to realize
Thank
pay as you throw does save.
Oh,
money.
yes, yes. So we've seen about a $50,000 savings in the town of Newtown in regards to the reduction of municipal solid waste tonnage. And because we now have a on-site ASP composting system in Newtown, we did see the cost savings and we are no longer transporting cost of transportation and tip fees. So there is a cost savings. In certain programs, yes, you can see a cost savings, but it's not always. So I just don't want that to be like, I don't want it to create a myth. But in Newtown, we have seen a significant reduction in savings because there's such a large community. In our smaller communities, we don't see as much of a cost savings because whether it's 1 ton or 5 tons, it's still the same cost of transportation and offsite disposal.
Can I add to that? Sorry, I know that question wasn't for me at all. But I went to a tour of the Newtown ASP and it was great. And one of the things that was really interesting was that Newtown also composts in school. They separate food waste in school and all of their school food waste goes directly to the ASP, which saves a ton of money as well.
Yes.
So, and they're really like, their problem is that they're making so much
Yes.
food waste now that they need to like expand the facility. So that is definitely a savings, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
To the schools.
Hi, my name's Anna. I'm a fellow at Sustainable CTU this summer, and I kind of just have a question and a suggestion. So this is for the sustainable or for the Fairfield green team. And basically, I think it definitely is hard to get high school engagement. Like I was in high school literally last year, and high school was lazy. So like, but I think maybe a way that you do is partnering with like if you have an environmental club or something like that, partnering with them, and like maybe during the lunch period have them kind of like man the stations. And then also maybe inviting like the elementary school kids to like come to the field trip to like help the high school kids out, to then like it could make like the elementary school kids more excited to be like, oh, I'm helping out like older kids, like, and get a little bit more engagement.
That's a good idea. One of our dreams.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. We were thinking the opposite, where
Yeah.
once the high school kids learned, they could come to the elementary level.
Yeah.
And it could be like, instead of the parents telling them what to do, it's like, their
Cool,
peers.
older
Yeah.
I like it the other
Yeah.
way too.
But that's a
yeah,
like
fantastic.
first grader knows how
Yeah.
to compost, you should too.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I guess the question I have, for like a lot of communities that where the parents can't come in and like volunteer, what would you recommend, like what would you give as like recommendation, like guidance to kind of?
So we're actually hoping this year that we can get some community members in, like, as I said, I'm also part of Sustainable Fairfield, which is like a really it's not huge, but there's, at least 10 active members. A lot of them are retired or not working, et cetera. So we're hoping we're going to talk to the school system and see if we can get some of those people in, but I think it's really dependent on but also teachers, if you can get the teachers involved, or if the custodians are willing to do it. Some of our custodians are willing to stand there and make sure the kids are doing it correctly.
Yeah.
Anybody in the school, staff members that are able to help. Did you guys have anything else?
Don't you also have like students, like one per grade, fifth
Yeah.
graders maybe that?
Yeah.
It's
So
not
we-
at my school. But.
Yeah, we have green teams in all of our schools. Some have a few more kids than others. In the school that my kids are in specifically, we have about, I would say, 28 kids on our green team, 4 staff members and 4 adults, or 4 parents, I should say. And the 5th graders at the beginning of the year do a really great job. They come up with a little skit. It's in an assembly. They reteach or teach the kindergartners how to compost, and then they're allowed time to come into the other lunch periods to kind of facilitate and oversee the younger kids and help them out. But I will say they don't do it during their own grade, because I feel like that's like a little bit, and I would say this with the high school too. I'm curious, as a high schooler, even a green team high schooler, overseeing your peers at the same age or same level, I don't know, is that like
Yeah, no, sometimes there's like a disconnect, but I feel like sometimes like my friends would be like working at a table or something, so I'd be like more inclined to like go say hi, like see what they're doing, so kind of like spread the word and just like friend. I mean, sometimes it is hard though with that, because
Yeah.
like it's kind of an awkward like, okay.
But then that's what we'll bring elementary kids in.
Yeah. I like then if you have like a little kid like at lunch, like what is a little kid doing, and like they're more like, you're gonna be nicer because the little kids.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know in a lot of high schools, this is definitely the case in Fairfield, that kids need to like have something for their college application or whatever, so that they can show that they've done like a substantial project. So that's why I kind of had this dream that the Eco Club or whoever wanted to at the high school could have the opportunity to like put together a presentation that goes to the school, and also like have some materials that go with it and that type of thing. Sorry, I had another.
Middle schoolers did that.
The middle schoolers did that, yeah. So, and at my kid's school, we don't have as robust of a green team, but we do, in 5th graders are given more responsibilities as they're like preparing to move to middle school. So they do our food rescue. So every Wednesday and Friday, we have someone from food rescue comes to take our leftover like cheese sticks and yogurts and stuff. And those kids are responsible for packing it all up and putting it where it belongs at the right time of day, so that they,
I just wanted to tell you about a success story we had in Stanford. I tried to get into schools and do assemblies and keep information. 3 years ago, I had a wonderful young lady who was she was president of the environmental club. And then I hired her as a summer intern as well. And she helped us develop, she got us another grant, which we bought our second machine from. She helped us develop a great program at the school. So for, look at Nick, 6 months, we were able to pull the compost food waste out of the high school. And it was a great program. She then went on, I think that was in environmental studies. It was a great program. Unfortunately, at high schools, every year becomes different because who's in charge of the club? We have a wonderful teacher who's head of the club, but she's also teaching, and it's a full-time job. So we kind of lost that momentum at the school. So it's every year I found at the high schools, we need to push and try. So that's one of my goals with our part-time food waste sustainable coordinator to start, and it's her goal as well, to start really a program that continues every year.
Thanks, Dan. That is, you have had so many great examples in Stanford. And living in Norwalk, I tried to clone you and bring you to Norwalk, and Jennifer as well. But anyway, I just wanted to add on to the schools discussion. Part of it is also politics, because most boards of ed are elected positions. There's a lot of turnaround and turnover for science teachers. I know in Norwalk, I've been told after we approached them with Norwalk Zero Waste Coalition that they are getting the food scrap together for the community. They have a company that handles the food. And so I have yet to see their review, but a lot of us want to make sure our schools are aware. But one thing that doesn't always happen is there's not an educational component, and it's just mandated. So as all of you know already, you have to put in the time to explain and make it clear. But I just wanted to say that I'm going to be working on some concept language for the legislature with many of you. I'll be in touch to make a regional approach to school food waste and recycling. The word mandatory in Connecticut, as you know, there's 169 ways that we like to do our thing. But by making it a regional approach where districts help each other and scale it up on education, hauling costs, etc., it might be something that is worthy, since a lot of us here spend a lot of time trying to educate our legislators for the regulations that you flashed on your backdrop there. It's something that a lot of us think is a no-brainer, but the legislature needs to be convinced that it'll be for the betterment of their individual constituents. So if any of you are interested in it, please tell me, Diane Loricella, or Cheryl Baldwin, terrific deep person. There's other people here, Pippa, Diane Keefe, and Jen, and we're all trying to get there. But one thing or another, politics gets in the way a lot of that time. So thank you for your help. I have to go walk some dogs.
And with that, I think we're at time, but if you have continued questions, contact information for all of our panelists is on the flyer, which there are additional copies outside on the table that you signed in on. We'll also be posting the presentations with permission on the website, which is included on the flyer, and we'll be emailing this out if you registered on Eventbrite as well, or signed in. So thank you so much for taking the time and for coming. We hope to see some of you at the remainder of our events this week. And thank you to our panelists for taking the time and coming to the
Nice to meet you.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining us on Zoom. We're finishing up. We have more events going on tomorrow and on Wednesday and a week from now on Wednesday. So if you're interested in that as well, visit swctclimate.org to find those Eventbrite links. Thank you very much. Bye.